Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck. Just want to jump on tonight because we had some more statements out there that came forward today after the unbelievable statement that we saw from the Karen Reed prosecutor, Hank Brennan, where he basically reassessed that how independent he was and that all the evidence pointed to Karen Reed being guilty. So he basically was just telling everybody that the jury was messed up. They got it all wrong, and he knows the truth, what really happened. So, and he followed the evidence and all that kind of garbage. So, if he would have followed the evidence instead of following the money, he would have had this charge dismissed the first week he started looking at it. So, anyway, they had nothing then, and no matter how much he tried to prop it up and put stuff on CPR, life support, try to put it on every kind of scaffolding to try to hold the thing up and bracing and all that kind of stuff. The thing that ultimately, if you don't have a good foundation of the case, which is you don't have any evidence that Karen Reed's vehicle struck John O'Keefe, then you have no case. It should never have been brought to trial at the first get-go. And why any attorney with any experience would sign up to this, you really got to scratch your head and think, is this guy really need that money that bad? Or why would you put yourself out there and make an utter complete fool out of yourself for the world to see? So, and then we're seeing multiple jurors coming forward, and they're saying that not only did the state not prove their case beyond reasonable doubt, but they've been saying what we've been saying, which is like Karen Reed is actually innocent. The more you do a deep dive on the facts, you find that she's actually innocent. And there was no way that John O'Keefe died from her vehicle striking him. So I think that for these jurors also to have another one come out when they're basically threatened and ridiculed and scorned by some of these hate Karen wackos, then it's really inspiring and encouraging to see. So let's go to see this foreman that came out today, and he was on some Today show that was this morning. Here we go.
Some more new reaction to the Karen Reed trial. Public perception still mixed. Nearly a week after she left court, a free woman acquitted of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend.
This morning, the special prosecutor is breaking his
public reaction still mixed. What percentage is it, though? It's like a very small percent, like maybe 5% that thinks she's should have been convicted. Anybody that really seriously followed the case would not think that. So, and if you stop to think about it, anybody that would think that she should have been convicted and wasn't following the case properly was relying on all these main news channels that made it look like she was guilty. So
his silence, and now the jury foreman is about to share what it was like leading the deliberations in his first live interview. We'll speak with him in a moment, but first a look at the latest on the case. It's been almost a week since Karen Reed's fate was sealed.
Defendant not guilty or guilty? So say you, Mr. Foreman?
That almost has a negative spin on it. Her fate was sealed. Normally say that when something bad is happening to somebody, right?
So say you all?
The jury clearing Reed of second-degree murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of a deadly accident. And for the first time since that acquittal, Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan ending his silence, saying in a statement, "I am disappointed in the verdict and the fact that we could not achieve justice for John O'Keefe and his family."
No, justice happened because you try to frame an innocent person, and the jury saw you right through your smoke and mirrors and all the deception and blocking of truthful evidence to come into light there in front of that jury. But they saw enough of the truth to see that you have zero to go on.
Continuing, after an independent and thorough review of all of the evidence, I concluded that the evidence led to one person and only one person. Prosecutors had alleged that Karen Reed backed her SUV in.
Because that's what you had to say, because that's what you were hired to do. You're hired to prosecutor. That's what you were telling us when you first got hired. And that's what Morrissey said. You're hired to give her a fair trial. And when you saw how bad the evidence is, you realize that you better block as much of this evidence as possible. Try to keep out ARCA and just ignore all the indicators that other people were involved.
To O'Keefe in a drunken rage while dropping him off at an after party following a night of bar hopping back in January 2022, calling dozens of witnesses to the stand from people at the scene.
What did she say to you?
I hit him.
To crash reconstruction experts. But Reed's
Yeah, why don't you show those instead of Nuttall?
lawyers claimed she was framed in a law enforcement cover-up.
Patterned injury that you see on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm
There you go.
is consistent with an animal bite or claw marks.
Yes, it is.
It turned into a battle of the experts.
Why don't you bring out something more compelling, like he didn't get hit by a car? She flat out said it. Also, Rentschler, why don't you bring up his?
Neither of the events that occurred on that date were triggered by a collision.
And although Reed did not take the stand herself, the prosecution tried to use her own words to build a case against her.
Didn't I say, could I have hit him? Or was it told to me that I said I hit him?
At the end, the jury felt there was not enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Reed did it and convicted her only of driving under the influence. And we're joined now by the jury foreman in the retrial, also known as juror number 1. And sir, you've asked us and we've agreed to keep your name private for confidentiality reasons. So with that, we say good morning. And can you just explain, take us into this jury room and how the jury came to the conclusion it did?
Collectively together, we looked at all the evidence that we was presented with, and we made our decision off of that. We didn't, at first, some had their own personal opinions on what the case should be or whatever, and was trying to go down like a personal feelings and stuff like that. And we had to stick to what evidence we had in front of us and
Right.
and go with that. So it was more or less.
They discussed evidence, not feelings, right? Feelings can get you sidetracked. They discussed the evidence and what solid evidence they had to show that there was a vehicle strike. If you don't have a vehicle strike, you don't have any crime of Karen striking John, period.
Just trying to figure out that part. And it took us a couple of days to really get the gears going, but when we did, it was smooth trails after that.
Sir, to that point, the evidence, was there a singular piece of evidence that seemed to move the majority of the jurors in the room?
Yeah, maybe sort of the fact that the car never struck John O'Keefe, but they considered all the evidence, as you'll hear him say.
Or were there multiple pieces?
It just was, it was the whole case altogether, all the pieces, testimony, witnesses, and it just a lot together. And people had questions. We used the evidence to answer their questions, and we didn't try to go down these rabbit holes where we're just getting lost in what all these other things that was thrown at us in court or whatever, and we just had to lock down and figure it out through the evidence.
Sir, I asked one of the...
Yeah, like maybe the ham sandwich or the blue man demonstration.
other fellow jurors this question. It's a very fine distinction. In your opinion, is Karen Reed innocent? She didn't do this? Or is it just that the prosecutors did not put on enough evidence?
I've never seen a case where so many people are asking this question. The media just can't get over the fact that it's only because they couldn't prove it, right? We all know she's really guilty, right? Just like Brendan's trying to make out.
To convict.
Karen Reed is innocent, and
think of that. This is another juror saying she's innocent. Has anybody ever seen a murder case where you have multiple jurors saying that not only did the government not prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, but we think she's innocent? So Hank Brendan was prosecuting an innocent person for murder. What kind of prosecutor can't size up evidence properly and understand this is how jurors are going to react. It's so abundantly clear you would not get a conviction. If you got a conviction, it's only through trickery and deception and blocking of the truth. So I've been saying that since day one of covering the second trial. This juror gets it. They deliberated and considered all the evidence. They focused on the things that mattered. And you know what? He's going to be vilified also by these hateful people that can't stand Karen Reed.
She didn't do this crime. No one could prove that she did this crime. So I looked at her from day one as an innocent woman that needed to be proven guilty. And I don't think any of that was shown in this process.
And do you realize there's people that are bashing him now, saying, see, that proves right there. He presumed she was innocent from day one. He didn't open his eyes to the evidence. He didn't consider any of all this overwhelming evidence of her guilt and this ridiculous stuff like that. So no, he did his job. She's presumed guilty. Just like every other person in America, you're presumed guilty under the law. They followed the actual jury instructions, and you're presumed innocent. And if and only if the government can prove each of the elements of each count beyond reasonable doubt, then they have a duty under the law, a duty to vote not guilty.
Sir, to that point, if she didn't do it, who did?
See, then they try to beat you up this way. Well, then who did it? You gotta solve it. No, jurors don't need to solve it, right? If the prosecution doesn't do their efforts to root out all possible suspects, they only focus on one person, and they charge her within 16 hours of John O'Keefe being found, then guess what? You've not answered this for this juror to go on. So you're going to put him in the spot that he needs to go. What is he supposed to do? Go on 34 Fairview and start researching where things could have happened in the house or outside the house in the garage?
That's not my job.
There you go.
So, I mean, something did happen to Mr. O'Keefe.
Right. He was murdered. That's an obvious thing. And if it wasn't the vehicle, then what was it, Mr. Brennan?
And it's foul play or whatever you want to say, but there was no evidence to even through multiple witnesses and testimony by his autopsy and everything. It was still no one said to solid evidence that there was a collision or he got hit by a car.
So you don't think?
Yeah, you know what, Roseanne, that's a good point. Why are these MSM not outraged by the negligent police investigation? What is that? That just made me think of Court TV. We talked about Court TV last night. What have they ever said that's atrocious about the way Brennan's acted in court and the way these experts were treated and how overwhelmingly credible these experts are? And they actually leave no doubt. There's no doubt but that Karen did not strike John with her vehicle. They don't want to talk about that.
I think she actually hit him
everybody.
You don't think she hit him with the car at all?
No, go ahead.
He already said that. Do you even know anything about the case, Mr. Anchor?
You don't think she hit him with the car at all?
No, I don't.
You sure about that? Over here. You sure about that?
Not with the evidence that was put in front of me and what we
Anchor.
What we heard over
sitting up in his chair like, what do you think you're talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about. I know more about this case than you do, Mr. Foreman.
Everything? No, I don't.
Were you aware of just how high profile this case was? There were throngs of people outside in front of the courthouse. I know the jury officers, kept you away from that, but there was a big scream at the end when the verdict was read that was audible.
A big scream? No, it's like a stadium roar cheering that finally Karen Reed has been set free from this abusive tyranny of Massachusetts.
In the courtroom. How much did you know about that, and how much, if anything, did that have to do with your process, your deliberations?
I was just going to go with whatever evidence showed us. If it was finding her guilty or finding her not guilty. And we were just going to go with the evidence. And at the end of the day, when I came in on Monday, I established to everyone, I just want everyone to feel like they're heard 100%, their thoughts, their process is being heard also in that process. And everyone felt at the end of the deliberations that everyone felt good about the decision.
Right. They felt good knowing that they did the right thing. They looked at the evidence. They didn't have any preconceived notions. Think about it. Brennan didn't kick this guy off. He didn't kick off these other jurors. His skilled expertise as a lawyer allowed these guys to stay on. And guess what? Now he's going to turn around, kick sand in their face and say, you guys didn't do justice. Shameful, disgusting.
Decision that we all collectively came together with. So
in the end, there is still a mother who lost her son, Officer O'Keefe. What do you think justice would look like for the O'Keefe family?
What do you think it would be, dude? Really? You got to ask that question. What are you trying to do? Make him feel guilty like he didn't do the right thing by the O'Keefe family?
Someone looking into it further, but looking into it further with the evidence that you already have, and then you finally find a possible person, there's going to be the same complications of all this other stipulations of the evidence and everything else to go along with it. So it's just hard. And to put a mother through that, and a father and a brother and the whole family through that again it's a lot. Even me being there for 8 weeks and 9, and just sitting and watching the videos and seeing the tape and everything, it's a lot to see your loved one go through that. So
yes,
that's a lot for the.
Yeah, and you know what? What justice do they even care about? The prosecution and the Commonwealth Police and Canton Police Department folks. What do they care about if they prop up this absolute trash investigation that wasn't an investigation at all? It had all the makings of a cover-up and not an investigation. Okay, so why don't you start over and figure out how you can unravel all that corruption and hiding the ball and planning of evidence?
The jurors as well. It's a community service that people as citizens are asked to do. And as a foreman in particular, no one gives you a manual and tells you how to deliberate. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being here, Mr. Foreman. We appreciate it.
You know what? And he has the guts to come on, because you know what? He probably was ticked off about seeing what this Brennan guy was talking about. And you know what? He's going to defend his honor. Does this guy have any axe to grind? You could tell his demeanor. He's just trying to do the right thing. He knows what it was to follow his jury instructions, and he took it to heart. And he wants to come out there and defend himself, because you got people like Brennan trying to beat up and trash these jurors as having some kind of agenda. None of these guys had an agenda except following the letter of the law, following the instructions, looking at the evidence. There was nothing there to go on, absolutely zero. And that's why these guys say, not only is there not a reasonable doubt, it's beyond all doubt, but that Karen Reed's innocent. So, I mean, who prosecutes a murder case like that, where jurors come out and say, no, not only did you not prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, but you couldn't even convince me that you proved to me that she's innocent. So,
hey, thanks for watching.
Anyway, we don't know this guy's name, but juror number 1, you did awesome. Thanks for doing your job. Thanks for not falling into all the trickery and deception of the evidence, and doing the right thing. That's what justice is doing the right thing, not having some kind of agenda going in there. So, and I know you guys have talked about Alan Jackson's statements today, so we're going to cover that as well. Hold on a second. So Alan Jackson also responded after this ridiculous statement of Brennan that we talked about last night. So here it says, Karen Reed attorney Alan Jackson blasts special prosecutor new statement. Karen Reed attorney Alan Jackson issued a lengthy statement on Tuesday blasting special prosecutor Hank Brennan over his egregious breach of prosecutorial ethics in the days after Karen Reed's acquittal and the death of John O'Keefe. Jackson shared the statement with Boston 25's Ted Daniel. His full statement is as follows. The jury has spoken, but special prosecutor Hank Brennan, in an egregious breach of prosecutorial ethics, has tried to publicly shame and discredit that very jury. For him to attempt to supplant his personal views of that jury is a desperate attempt to save face in the wake of a unanimous rejection of the prosecution's case. That's great, because you know what? That's what he was trying to do. Publicly shame the jury. Who's ever seen a prosecutor do this? Unbelievable. This is so low. And no prosecutor should be doing this. But you know what? When it's all taken personal, it's not about justice. That's what you get, is somebody that's going to become unhinged and make a complete joke out of this case. Even after it's over, he's still showing what a joke this whole thing is and what a joke he was on this case. All right, next it says the rules of professional conduct are clear. The prosecutor should support the legitimacy of the justice system and promote public confidence in its operations. Yeah, so there you go. The prosecutor should not ever make a comment chastising a jury like this. Openly attacking a jury's verdict because he disagrees with it undermines that centuries-old edict. That's what we have for all prosecutors in America, no matter their state, federal, or local. They're supposed to promote the legitimacy of the system and promote public confidence. And when you make these kind of personal attacks on the jury and talk about how you personally can vouch for basically how Karen Reed's guilty, you don't respect the system either. Mr. Brennan claims that his investigation was quote unquote thorough. If that was true, the Commonwealth would have uncovered what we, the defense, uncovered: hidden exculpatory evidence, lies and perjury by the Commonwealth's own witnesses, cops covering for other cops, a biased and corrupt lead investigator with personal ties to witnesses, an inculpatory and suspicious conduct by a myriad of witnesses. The only job of an ethical prosecutor is to seek the truth in a just and fair manner. The Commonwealth fell wildly short of that responsibility. Theirs was not an effort to find justice for John O'Keefe. That is so true. Amen. Rather, it was a personal vendetta against Karen Reed by DA Michael Morrissey and his handpicked prosecutors, and it cost the people of Norfolk County millions. The fact is, Karen Reed is factually innocent, and this case never should have gone to trial in the first place. How true that is as well. This case is a stark reminder that there has been a complete breakdown of what's supposed to be our justice system. And those in power are more interested in protecting themselves than the citizens that they are sworn to protect. It's like a mafia type operation up there, right? It goes on to say the Commonwealth's defamatory public statements ring hollow to the very constituents they are supposed to serve. It is now crystal clear that disgraced DA Michael Morrissey has no interest in actually seeing justice for John O'Keefe by identifying and prosecuting the real killer or killers. The Commonwealth would rather simply condemn the jury and its fair and lawful verdict. We are thankful for the jury's commitment to truth and that they have found their way to a just verdict, but make no mistake, if DA Michael Morrissey had his way, the truth would never have come out in this case. It would have been lost somewhere in private and deleted conversations that would have never seen the light of day. Corruption like this doesn't happen in isolation. How many innocent people have been railroaded because of the failures in our justice system? We as citizens must demand more of our institutions. So this is a really, really damning thing. He's basically saying that not only was this a quest to frame an innocent person in essence, but they went about it in an unethical manner. And if it's unethical, basically it shows how personal and vindictive it really is. And if prosecutors are willing to violate ethical rules to get there, what about this inspired confidence of anybody watching this that this is a fair and just system in Massachusetts? Nobody can say that. Nobody understands the law, and you don't even have to understand the law or be a lawyer or be a trial lawyer or a criminal expert to understand this thing was just nothing but a hijacked railroad job against Karen Reed. And so I applaud the defense attorney Alan Jackson for standing up to the tyranny that was coming from the Commonwealth, and this absolute disgraced public comment by Brennan that came out and attacking the jury and saying how he knows what really happened, that Karen Reed's still guilty, even though the jury didn't find her guilty. So I think that I think confidence in the judicial system of those that are actually working the justice system are at an all-time low in Massachusetts. But this has restored a lot of confidence in the people, the common people, the citizenry there, because that's what our framers of the Constitution realize, is that 12 people have more common sense than any bureaucrats from the state or federal government that can easily be corrupted and manipulated with personal benefits and kickbacks and things of that nature. So there's one other thing I wanted to talk about here. Look at this. This is how it shows you how bad this cesspool is up there. So this was posted on the Facebook page there for the State Police of Massachusetts. And it says here, and this is a state police association. So this is an entity that cops can be a member of for different communities there. And it says the association continues to send its sincere condolences to the family of Boston Police Officer John O'Keefe. The jury has spoken and we remain respectful of the process. But then goes on to say, however, okay, doesn't that sort of negate what they just said? The jury's spoken. Since the beginning of this trial, there have been numerous attacks and accusations against our troopers and sergeants. Careers have been lost. Which careers? Just you talking about just the one, a proctor, who deservedly was terminated as a state trooper. Families have been devastated and many lives have been changed forever. Why? What did they do? What's this got to do with the verdict? As our current and former members continue to be the subjects of baseless accusations. Oh, really? They're baseless? So, if you're saying they're baseless, the way this crime scene was just obliterated and basically covered up from the get-go, you're going to say that was baseless accusations? So this shows the whole culture up there is one of absolute corruption. They don't care about following protocols, police protocols, evidence collection protocols, evaluating evidence, and having common sense, for crying out loud. They don't have any common sense. It's all agenda driven, corruption, personal politics driven. It is important to remember that the investigation of John O'Keefe has been investigated with great scrutiny by both members of state police, internal affairs, and the FBI. Oh, really? So you're going to state what the FBI found? How do you know that? You don't know anything what the FBI found. To date, there has yet to be any information that this investigation was compromised in any way. Wow. So there you go. They're just basically sugarcoating and just looking the other way and saying, "Oh, you got nothing here. You got nothing here. We're all legitimate. We do things by the book." So that's why I'm just saying here that this shows that they need wholesale cultural changes, and the only way you're going to get that is firing all the leaders all the way from top to bottom. It goes on to say, we remain steadfast in our commitment to represent the men and women of the State Police Association, are forever grateful for the work of our members do every day to serve the citizens of the Commonwealth. So basically, they're fine with the way Proctor conducted himself. Careers have been lost. They're making it sound like that was a wrongful loss of a career of Proctor. He shouldn't have had that happen to him. So you know what? You guys is just more just no professionalism, no class to try to again trash people that are complaining about the botched operation you have there as a so-called police investigation. So there's also one put out by the actual state police. Hold on a second, looking at. Okay, Kim, you sent me something about racism. I assume that's also came out recently here. Hold on, I want to show the Massachusetts State Police comment on the case as well. They did. I'm not finding it here, but you know what? So that's basically like a union for the various police agencies there. So if they represent the individual troopers, so they couldn't even defend Proctor, right? Proctor is probably a member of the association. Yeah, so there was an editorial a week ago in the Boston Herald saying that the Massachusetts State Police is guilty in the Karen Reed case. That's a better way of saying it, because it's it's an absolute sign that they don't get it, because they never come forward and said anything was done improper in the case. Yeah, they fired Proctor only for an appearance of bias. He wasn't actually biased. It was just an appearance of that. So until you have wholesale firings and sweeping these people out for being absolute incompetent, there's not going to be any change of how things are done up there. Yeah, I don't. To get those kind of judicial positions and whatnot, you got to be tied in politically, and so it's all about politics. It's not about competence or merit. You could have had every single officer that worked on the Karen Reed case be fired, and they would still make a public statement saying how great they were. And if there's nothing there, so leave our people alone. We're being harassed. You know what? Perceptions of justice and injustice matter. And if the public perception is you guys are corrupt and incompetent, then guess what? You have a massive problem on your hands. And what are you going to do to change the culture there? Yeah, JM, you're saying I do see a coordinated theme of crying and declaring themselves as victims after losing the case. Perry, Interstellar, Harry, yes, I agree. There was no investigation, just a semblance of one that was designed to pin it on the girl. Learning curves, yeah, they're not going to look at themselves and realize they botched investigation. They keep gaslighting everybody, including the officers. You know what? What about Yuri Buchanan, the sergeant there for MSP? Why wasn't he disciplined worse? Why is he even saying that everything was done to standard and had to be revealed through extensive cross-examination? That he finally admitted that what Proctor did wasn't to standard. But he's still there. He's still working cases. They just don't care. Design rhythm, yeah. Destroying phones, perjury, manipulating videos, no problem. Thanks for Food is Love being here to mod tonight. That's great. Yeah, can you realize how many people have been ground up and thrown in jail and sent down the river to the prisons there in Massachusetts because they didn't have the right attorneys to fight this kind of corruption? Yeah, Mandy, that's what I'm saying. In other words, it'll continue to be business as usual in Massachusetts. That's why nothing's going to clean this up unless massive amounts of people get fired. I mean, even the governor who appointed the judge, he's never saying about this is despicable. Why aren't they impeaching people? Why aren't they forcing folks to resign? Yeah, that's great that the lawyers are giving the first interviews and statements to law tubers, Channel 25, Ted Daniels, and Howie Carr have supported Karen rather than the mainstream media. Exactly. They should never talk to mainstream media. Those guys are corrupt as well, not about justice or truth, all about agendas. Piggy, the prosecution knew the cop who saw the taillights saw that it was only cracked, but they didn't tell the defense. That I don't know. I know that's what Bedro is saying, but I don't know how he knows that. But if I don't know that they didn't turn that over to the defense, then I'm not going to say they violated any discovery or Brady requirements. Larry Hudson, yeah, that's true. Between the defense expert witnesses and the jury, light is shown in the darkness there in Massachusetts. Well, Javi goes, yeah, if you lived in Massachusetts, I have front, rear dash cams and cameras all around my house, exterior, upload straight to the cloud where they can't tamper with it and erase it, right? Kevin Whelan, yeah, he never went in the house, you're saying, because they beat him up in the garage. Yep. Design rhythm on what planet with the cops not search your house says they found a dead guy on your lawn after a party. That's his only up there where you got connections. He's not going to get any kind of hassles from the state police because he's a Boston cop. Suzanne, the session indictment of the Commonwealth that demands further investigation. Yeah, it's hard to watch, isn't it? I mean, it's riveting on one hand to see the stuff unfolding for your eyes, something this over the top, crazy, wild corruption, but then to think it's really happening and somebody like Karen Reed has to go to court every day. Thinking, could the jury actually believe all these lies that are being peddled about the case? Yeah, design rhythm. There's so few cops saying it for John. Yeah, I saw that on Microdots where they looked at all the social media for all the police officers involved in this case that had social media, and no one said the name John O'Keefe. I think there was just one that showed a picture. Chief Rafferty showed a picture of John, blocked out the niece and nephew that was taking care of. But everything was like really hush hush, like they knew something was up. Chulas, if the medical examiner could not determine the cause of death, if not one doctor could prove John was hit by a car, that means Karen is innocent, full stop. Well, including folks with accident reconstruction degrees, biomechanical degrees that know exactly how to put back the pieces of an accident, and they have PhDs in it as well. So nobody with a associates like Trooper Paul in the first trial, or these people from Aperture that just blew a lot of money, had nothing to show for it except a joke of a fifth grade demo. Herbie, for Brennan to publicly chastise the jury for doing their job, I feel his comments will deter others from wanting to do their duty and serve on a jury. Or else maybe they'll say, you know what? Wow, this is what the Commonwealth is like, and they can railroad people like this. I want to serve on a jury. They should want to raise their hand and say, you know what? Get me on a jury. I'll make sure justice is done. I will follow the law. LESB, you're saying, I think he saw the female juror getting harassed. Yeah, that's juror number, what is it, 11 or 12? I forget, I always get those mixed up. Paula Prada, and he stepped up, real man. Yeah, I wish more jurors would step up, and help circle around and defend those that are being trashed. Yeah, the foreman stood his ground. That is true. Yeah, all these jurors, you can tell how serious they took their job. That does instill confidence in the jury system. And it goes to show you that that one foreman of the first jury is the one that tricked and bamboozled all these other jurors, and it's shutting them down. They couldn't ask questions. They couldn't tell the judge that they had a unanimous verdict on count 1 and 3. It was a complete railroad job. And that's the one we heard. Apparently, he has some ties to Lally as well. So all that's going to come out later down the road. It should anyway. Yep, surreal. Brandon knew he had a corrupt judge behind him every step of the way. The whole world knew it wasn't a fair trial, and he still lost. He got all those rulings to block evidence, keep stuff out, and he still lost. That's why I'm saying I have so much respect. I'm thinking of them as like America's team, America's defense lawyers, this team Karen had. Because you know what? To go to court every day knowing the judge is just rubber stamping, blocking all the time. What did they have, like 47, 49 sustained objections they had to contend with in a row? Thanks, Deanna. That's sweet of you. Thank you. Wish you all the best as well. Clint Adams, can Karen sue for defamation? The ones that are still calling her the killer, even though she's been proven innocent. I'm sure they're looking at that. I don't know what the laws are in Massachusetts, but they're probably looking at that down the road, not right now. Jim, that's true. Media's trying to push the narrative that Karen Reed got off on a technicality, and she's really guilty. So glad the jury foreman set the record straight. I don't recall seeing that by mainstream media in other trials, right? Moto 88, yeah, the jury comments are decimating Aperture, which I just love for Welcher. He was so cocky, and they were literally laughing at him in their minds as they listened, as we all were, just thinking, how can this Commonwealth pay this guy 400,000 along with Burgess? VW salt and pepper, or prepper, I guess you're saying, when any judge makes rulings concerning your liberty under absolute immunity, they inherently, by default, are acting under Machiavellianism as a motivating force. Well, if you don't respect the Constitution and you're a judge, then it's a sad day in that courtroom every time that person's on the bench. Suzanne, that's a good point. You're thinking how much better the Murdo investigation was. So much for intellectual Massachusetts, tech hub of the nation, where state police don't even know how to plot coordinates. Yeah, Microdots had something out there on that today. Keep smiling. It'll be interesting if any of the jurors from the first trial come out and wish they had evidence from the second trial. Yeah, I wish more would come forward and talk about what the foreman did to hijack the process. Surreal, that's true. Brennan trashed the Honorable Sergeant Burroughs in closing argument. Ironically, the only honest cop involved in the case. And that's why I had to attack him. He was the honest one. Feeling better naturally, the jurors and everybody should know about how much time, effort, money, and resources were wasted by the prosecution to prevent evidence and witnesses that prove Karen's innocence. Yeah, I think they have no clue as to what kind of a railroading was going on that they weren't privy to. Learning curves, yeah, they should. This case should make people want to pay attention to what's going on in whatever the community they are living in. Go down and seek trials. Go to the criminal courthouse or wherever they have criminal trials and see what's going on. Do you guys have Brennan type people in your community? Do you have a Judge Canoni type in your community? Get them. Oh, yeah, that's true. Look at the Chappaquiddick case from 1970. They have not evolved at all. That was involving Ted Kennedy, one from the famous Kennedy family, brother of the former president that got assassinated in Dallas, John F. Kennedy, and he was driving over some bridge, and that I think that was on the Cape there in Massachusetts, and it didn't have a railing, and he flipped the car over, and the girl got killed, and it was just sort of all hush hushed and covered up, and nothing happened to him. And mostly did they pursue maybe a drunk driving, and that's it? I don't know if he got that at all, but he wound up becoming like a 30-year U.S. senator. Biscuit, you're saying they have a drinking problem in that state? I think every state has that problem. I think it's more so in the northern states. It's like the colder climate you have, I think it lends itself to more drinking, heavy drinking on average. That's what I've seen anyway. Yeah, Clinton Adams, Ted Kennedy. You could just Google that. It's got the name Chappaquiddick. There was actually, I think there was an actual movie on it, wasn't there? In the last 5-10 years, I never saw it, but or was it a documentary or something? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's the name of the girl he was dating that drowned, Mary Jo Kopensky or something. I'm sure I'm butchering the last name. That's a good point, Kevin Whelan. Like Cash and Bubba and Murdo, Lucky and Chloe saved Karen Reed. Big things that help implicate Murdo, and Lucky and Chloe help exonerate her. Feeling better, you're saying the evidence and investigation were intentionally contaminated to ensure the cop killers will never be prosecuted. Yeah, I mean they can't be that bad, can they? Oh, Chris Albert was a no-show at the town council meeting. They called something else, but yeah, I get what you're saying. There've probably been a lot of shouting going on in that fracas there. Okay, Kale, that's a good point. Casey Anthony, when she was acquitted, I don't remember MSM blaming the jury. I don't think I didn't follow that case too closely, but I can't recall them blaming the jury either. I mean, is there any high profile case where they blame the jury where the defendant's been acquitted? Margaret Ferenz, you're saying that Aperture, Hyde, Whiffen collaboration could have raked in $1 million. Brendan will get $1 million, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that you're probably right on that. I'm not sure about Brendan getting that much, but you never know. And we never did find out how much the others were making, aside from Aperture. But yeah, between Whiffen and Hyde, yeah, I bet you it was another $500,000 to $600,000 on top of the 400 to Aperture. Yeah, already went over the statement today. So if you want to go back. One pariah, you're saying this case has been so saddening and discouraging, and the unwillingness to look at what's right there in front of us all to get actual justice for John is heartbreaking. Yeah, Michelle, you're saying the entire case was reflective of mob mentality. Okay, Board of Selectmen. Yeah, that's the name of the city council guys there. And like you're saying, she did not drown. Actually, she suffocated. There was an air pocket, and she lived for an estimated 3 hours after the crash. You're talking about this Ted Kenny, but he never called for help, sought help. Yeah, that was what was so bizarre about it. Didn't do anything to help save her life. Okay, Festive, you're saying the defense team has hinted that the FBI has a significant amount of evidence that the defense could not use, and there's clearly a corruption and conspiracy charge coming. That's what I've been saying, folks. I just don't believe it that the FBI has closed this out. Corruption up there is so rampant and in full force. There's a lot of folks they could lasso up and bring down. Remember, they got what 4 or 5 state troopers doing that kind of scam on getting people commercial driver's licenses, give them passing test scores on their exams, driving exams when they actually didn't even take it or failed. So you're separated. Did you notice Hank never thanked the jury in his closing or his statements? So shady. Yeah, they're just tools. Like I say, they thought them as a bunch of dumb knuckleheads. Whatever we tell them, we just got to sound confident and bold and make fun of the defense witnesses, mock and ridicule them, make fun of their memory, make fun of what they ate for a sandwich, make fun of them deleting text messages. And we just got to look cool and tough, and the jury will believe me, and I'll get a win. But jury's smart. This jury's very smart. I'm just telling you, I've always trusted juries. You get them the right information, and you kick out the bad apples, and you normally will get justice time and time again. We would have the same outcome if we wouldn't have had a cop on the first trial. I did not see there was a longer interview with the foreman. Where was that on? KCL, yeah, we covered that last night with Sergeant Barrows. There wasn't much of that that we showed. I understand Mark Bitterell thinks there's some kind of at least some kind of Brady violation. They have a chance of civil rights lawsuit or taillight with Barrows. I don't think something will probably come out about that. We don't know what they disclosed to the defense during that first trial. So that would just be speculation. I don't know where Mark got his information from, but I mean, from what I hear, everybody up in Massachusetts, it's like 90% plus pro Karen, believing in her innocence. Very small percentage, single digit probably. And so for them to act like this is like there's many huge division on both sides, it's right down the middle. It's not the case at all. Ask anybody who lived there. I know my brother John's talked to somebody there in Massachusetts that said, yeah, we all think she got set up. It's common knowledge here. It's the way things are done. Yeah, there could be a RICO down the road. There's so much public corruption up there. Jam, no, I don't. You're saying that there was no OUI option in the first trial. That's true. Do you think they might have then found her guilty of at least a manslaughter charge? No, they couldn't find her. They didn't have the drunk driving option, and the only reason they were considering the manslaughter is because you had the foreman and jury tell them disregard everything from the defense, even ARCA. So yeah, I agree. His response were perfect. Elizabeth Ocean, you're listening to Mike Easter, former FBI and JSTV earlier today, and he said the DOJ doesn't close files. Well, there you go. That's what I was saying. The same thing. I didn't think they were closing it, and I think they just probably told that to Morrissey's office to see how they're going to go back to their same methods and tactics of corruption to help build their case. To go after him, for the feds to go after Morrissey's office and the others. Yeah, I was saying the FBI guy who didn't make it to the trial said the FBI has a lot of patience. They're watching everyone's reactions right now. Yeah, it's so awesome that the FBI did hire ARCA originally because the defense would not have had them. Okay, so Jam, you're saying there was a movie. See, I thought there was a movie about it. I never saw it. Mojave, you're saying the foreman told the Herald that he thinks the FBI should reopen the case and that no one local should be involved in the investigation. How true is that? What's really going on? Can Brennan lose his bar license or slander against innocent Karen? I just don't see any justice happening with any agency, government agency up there in Massachusetts. Yeah, I hope um I mentioned that CrimeCon last year, and this year it's in Denver, and it's later. They had it, when was it? The end of May. Last year they had it at the end of May, and then now they moved it up to September 5 through 7 in Denver. And so I'm thinking Court TV is going to be there again. So I'm gonna see if I can have a nice little chat with any of those anchor folks there. Ask them what the heck's going on with you guys. Learning curves. Well, the defense is the one that asked for the drunk driving charge to be on there to give the jury that option. So I said that's something I can see doing, and I think that was a smart move by the defense. And she's not going to serve any punishment, just that probation. So it gives the jury a chance to say, well, okay, yeah, you shouldn't have been driving that night. And then if there's not an option there, if you have some holdouts, they're saying she's not going to walk out of here without any conviction of something at least. And if the lowest level one is a felony, you always want to have a misdemeanor option if that's definitely something that there's evidence to convict, or at least it's debatable as to that. Yeah, Brendan, hold it. Jury foreman was not tricked into making statements and adhered to the proven evidence. Adriana, you're asking, can I read the foreman's interview with Boston Herald? So I guess that's a written one. Surreal. Hank referred to the closed FBI investigation, hoping to add legitimacy to his position in the cover up for the real culprits, but I think rumors of that closure have been greatly exaggerated. I agree. All right, let me see if I can find that. You probably have to have a membership to the Herald. Boston Herald. Let's see if I'm going to get it here. Yeah, I don't have that subscription handy. I know my brother John has it, but I don't have it handy right now. Unless, John, are you on? I don't think he is. I haven't seen him tonight. Yeah, food is love. But I think I had the password then. I don't think it's going to come up. It just got blocked when I tried it right now. Does anybody else have it? They can send it to me, do a PDF of it or something. Yeah. Brian Albert definitely was angry. That is true. Others looked at him when they're answering questions, wanting his approval. One second here. Sorry. Knocking my tea over here. Stand by. I'm going to try to find my email here. Oh, yeah, I already read that. Okay, that was the one I read last night. Okay. I read some of it last night. Okay. Wait, was that having to do with the four-person, though? Okay, hold on a second. I'll just pull this back up here. Stand by. Okay, so juror number one, foreman of the Kern Reed retrial told the Herald there was no aha moment in the grueling case that he said wasted the taxpayers' money on paper-thin evidence that failed to bring any comfort to the victim's family. An unforgivable fact was the fact that investigators didn't swarm the house at the murder scene at 34 Ferry Road in Canton during the nor'easter in January was shoddy work and a blatant red flag. The foreman added, that's why the only guilty finding against Reed was drunken driving. If that body was on my front steps, I know my house would have been stormed. The juror who's black. Yeah, we already covered this last night. Okay. It seemed like a lot of wishy-washy privilege. We had to look at the evidence that a lot of it didn't make sense. There was no meat, no aha moment. No one proved there was a collision. Even with all that jargon, all the jurors agreed. There you go. There wasn't a collision. If there's not a collision, then she's innocent. Completely innocent. So that's how bad it was for Brennan. Yeah, okay, we covered that before. Sorry, I'd forgotten about that. But for those of you that missed it, yeah, what's going on with Brian Higgins these days? I heard his house on the market. Is the ATF transferring him? Did he request a transfer somewhere else? All right, let's see. It's 11:45 here, so I'm gonna start wrapping this up here. If there's any last question, I'll take one more question, guys. Yeah, we did cover the statement for Jackson. Yeah, why didn't that reporter, so-called journalist, ask Brian Albert, why would the Ford Edge be moved at 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, whatever it was? What would they say? That's one of the biggest indicators that something was going on at that residence. GM, that's true. Absolutely no self-reflection on Commonwealth's part why the jury might have come to the conclusion it did. They cannot say how John wound up there. Brennan's girl in fetal position at home. I suspect that the medical examiners were denied from even talking about could John have been moved. Normally, if there's an autopsy, they can even show whether somebody's been moved. The way the blood settles and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder if some of that stuff was kept out, like stuff at the garage. All right, with that, folks, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And there's probably going to be still stuff coming out every day. So maybe I'll be back on tomorrow night as well. So thanks for supporting Justice for Karen Reed. I'm sure they still need money. So if you guys are inclined to donate, you guys can just Google Karen Reed Defense Fund and find it that way. So see you all again soon. Take care. Have a good night.